Hi guys, it's Darcy from Snails and Fairy Dust. Today I want to show you how to make these earrings, and there is a free pattern you could download at the link below. It is to honor the celebration of having 20,000 subscribers for this channel, which is so exciting. Thank you so much. I also have other patterns which will soon be available, and those will be for sale, but I just want to show you once you've mastered the stitch, the possibilities that are there for you of things you could make. But I thought first I would show you how to get through this pattern and the stitches you need to do to make it happen. So first, let's take a look at the pattern. The pattern is called Yay 20K because I'm so excited about 20,000 subscribers. And this is what it'll look like. We're starting from the bottom because I want to do increasing brick stitch rather than decreasing. So we're going to start from those bottom rows on the pattern, and they are numbered for you. And then we're going to go all the way up one side and then weave our thread back down and then go all the way up the second side. And then the last section is up at the top here, which is just decreasing brick stitch. There's also a word pattern that goes along with it, which is new to my patterns, not something I normally do, but I'm trying to add them now with all of my new patterns. It's a lot more time intensive, but I think for some people it's hard for them to see the visual patterns. So I wanted to add that as well. And so this is what we have. We're going to start right here at row 1. And yeah, so let me show you what that looks like on the earring. Yeah, so we're going to work from the bottom to the top, which I know is a bit unconventional, but I just wanted to sort of look like the same way you're going to be working with it, so it doesn't confuse you. So let's look at our supplies. I'm using Miyuki Delica beads in size 11. And if you look on the free pattern, you can see the exact bead numbers and the bead counts. I have these leverback ear wires, sort of open like this, but you could use whatever ear wire you want. I have these wire guards, and you could also make your loop with beads if you don't have wire guards. And I have a size 12 beading needle. And I have Fireline in 6-pound weight, my favorite. It's the white one. And so let's get started. Recently, I had someone send me a comment saying that I never show myself threading the needle. And that's because I'm a woman of a certain age and threading my needle on camera is tricky. But I take the Fireline and I sort of run it between my fingernails until it gets really flat. So I run it between my fingernails a few times, and then it's really easy to thread. And I don't make a knot at the end of my thread. And I sort of pull my tail about halfway down the other side of the thread. It's kind of hard to show here because it's a close shot and not a wide angle. But I hope you understand that. And there's no knot at the end, which was the other question the person had. So to get started, we're going to start with row 1, which is 2 beads of this sort of pumpkin color. And I'm going to pick up the 2 beads, slide them down towards the end of my thread. I'm going to leave myself about a 2 to 3 inch tail and then come back through the first bead, pull that through, and then come through the second bead. And then for good measure and to make them line up, I'm going to come back up through that first bead again. And now is where I add the ear wire. So I pick up the ear wire on one side. If you don't have these like wire guards, actually it's called a wire guard, not an ear wire, sorry. If you don't have that, you could add 6 beads here instead. And then I'm going to bring my needle down through the other side of the wire guard and down through that opposite bead. And this is what I'll have. And then I want to run through that wire guard again, probably unnecessary, but I like to be very secure with this top part of the earring because that's where all the stress of your earring is. So you want that to be really strong. So I'm coming back up through that, down through the other side, and down through that opposite bead. And now we will begin our brick stitch. I like to always turn the beadwork so that it's in my non-dominant hand and I'm working beading away from my non-dominant hand. So that's what I'm doing here. And I picked up my first 2 beads of the second row, and I'm going to go right under that thread bridge. And because we're doing increasing brick stitch here, I'm going to come right up through that second bead, and that's it. It's not decreasing, it's increasing. So for increasing, that's all we have to do. And then for the last bead on an increasing row of brick stitch, we need to share the same thread bridge as the last bead. So we're going to come underneath that last thread bridge, which in this case, we only have 1 thread bridge. So I'm coming right underneath there. This looks like a crazy mess right now, but when you pull it through, there you have it. And then I'm going to come up through that last bead I've just added. And there we have it. We have 1 row of increasing brick stitch. And then I'm going to turn it again because I'm working in the opposite direction. I just want to show you on here. So we're now on row 3 and we're going to work in the opposite direction. And when you're looking at the pattern, don't worry so much about the arrows, except for knowing that the arrows are showing you the sort of bead count. If you are working from left to right or right to left, that doesn't matter. Just make sure you're following the beads in the same direction as the pattern. So now I am starting my next row. I'm going to pick up the first 2 beads. And now you see you have the option of more than 1 thread bridge. So I'm going through the first thread bridge because we're doing increasing brick stitch. Many of my other videos are decreasing brick stitch, but in this case, we're using increasing brick stitch for now. When we get to the middle part of the earring, we will be using both. So it becomes a bit complicated. So we've gone under that first thread bridge and then up through the second bead. And then we're picking up the next bead. And for this one, we just go straight under the thread bridge, straight up through that bead. And then for the last one, we need to increase. So we're picking it up and we're going to go underneath the same thread bridge. We're going to share a thread bridge here and come up through that last bead and pull it tight. And there we have our next row. So we're going to do that again. You see I've turned it again so that I'm working away from my non-dominant hand. I picked up 2 beads going under the first thread bridge, and then I'm going to come right back up through that second bead. And sometimes you need to coax them into shape. Tell them what you want them to do. It's like training a dog, train your beads. So pick up your next bead and then go under the next thread bridge. And then back up through that bead. And then we're going to go through the last thread bridge. And at this point, you're following your pattern, so pick up beads according to your pattern. And then for the very last bead, we're sharing the same thread bridge again. And then coming up through that last bead. I will say that this pattern is a bit more for advanced beaders. This shouldn't be your first thing you're trying to bead. So I'm going to bead this whole section A, and when I get to the end of that, we're going to start the next section. So here we are. We've completed section A, and now we need to sort of bead up the sides. So we have section B, the left side, which if you look at the pattern, it's the side over here, and we're going to go all the way up, and then we come all the way back down, and then we will end up going back up the other side. So right now we're just going back and forth up this side, which is going to combine decreasing and increasing brick stitch in order to make this happen. So look at your pattern, look at your word pattern, and here we go. I'm picking up my first 2 beads, And because this angle is sort of coming out like a diamond, we're going to start with an increasing brick stitch. So coming underneath that first thread bridge, and then just back up through the second bead. Pick up my next bead, come underneath the next thread bridge, and straight back up through that bead. Sometimes even I get stuck here. So we're going to do it again. Come underneath the next thread bridge and back up through that bead. And the next thread bridge and back up through that bead. And at this point, we're going to turn our work and work in the opposite direction. And so in the opposite direction, it's decreasing brick stitch. So we're picking up our first 2 beads, and now it's going to be decreasing. So we're coming through the second thread bridge here. So the second thread bridge, bring it all the way through. And for decreasing, you want to come back up through that first bead, down through the second bead, and up through the first bead again. Now, hopefully, if you've watched some of my videos, this won't be complicated. Like, I don't want you to be a beginner watching this video because I'm skipping through some things because I'm hoping my 20,000 subscribers have already seen some other videos. So we're getting quickly to the end of this row. And then at the end of this row, we want the diamond to sort of come out. So we're adding an increasing bead on this outside row. So we're sharing the thread bridge of that last bead and then coming straight back up through that bead. And that gives us an increasing row. And now we keep going on this row. So I've picked up 2 beads and increasing again. So the outside here is going to be increasing. So 2 beads on the first thread bridge, and I'm coming back up through that second bead. And that's all I need to do for increasing. And then I work my way back across that row. There are 5 beads in each of these sort of outside wings of these rows. Wings, legs, I'm not sure what to call them, but the outside edges. So it's sort of 2 outside edges that form a diamond center. And then when I get to the last bead of 5, it's going to be a decreasing. And for decreasing, when you're on the end of the row, all you do is just put the bead there. Easy peasy. Nothing special you have to do. So keep going like that. You have all of these decreasing rows until you get to row 19. Decreasing, increasing. And one side is decreasing, the other side is increasing. But when you get to row 19, then we switch and it goes opposite. So you work on your side until you get to row 19. And then I'm going to run over how to do it from there. So hopefully you have your pattern. You've downloaded it from my website. It's free. There's no reason not to have the pattern. So here am I at the last row of that sort of outside angle, angling to the right of this pattern. And now I want my angle to start coming in to make the top part of the diamond. So after row 19, row 20, it is sort of decreasing. It starts on a decreasing stitch rather than an increasing. So decreasing, I'm coming through the second thread bridge there. Back up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and back up through the second bead again. And then I'm going to do the rest of this row. And then the difference at the end of the row is that we want it to be increasing. So now that we're angling in the opposite direction, we're doing the opposite stitches. So on this last bead here, it's going to be increasing. So we're sharing the same thread bridge as that previous bead, coming right back up from there. and you have something that looks like that. So make sure you're paying attention to your pattern. The way I look at my pattern is I use this really ancient wooden ruler, and I just wanted you to see how I do that. So I'm going to continue to work up to the top. And so we're increasing on the inside, decreasing on the outside. You see where I am now. I am sort of just working my way through there. Increasing on the inside and decreasing on the outside because it's the top part of that diamond shape. There we go. And I just want you to see what that looks like. And then we turn it and work in the opposite direction. So you keep working until you get to the top part of your pattern. And when you get there, I will meet you back here and we will have fun weaving our thread back down to the bottom. I just want to give you a real look at this. So we're going all the way up to the top and then back down to the bottom. So here I am. I have finished that whole top section on the right side or the left side, whichever it may be. And then I'm just working my needle back down to the section A. So I want to get back down the side of this to section A. And I'm going to slowly get there. And while I'm getting there, I just want to tell you guys that I've had this channel, this YouTube channel, for about 1.5 years now. January 2023 is when I really started developing it. And it's been really amazing. Like the fact that people send me, and that you are those people, send me the most lovely messages all the time. And my husband can't believe, he just says, I can't believe how nice women are, because he's shocked about the nice things people say to me. I guess men don't say nice things on social media, but you guys do. So thank you so much for it. So now we're going to start the right side. And so for this side, we are just looking at the pattern again, and we're just going to go and do the same thing, but on the opposite side. So working across, we're decreasing on this first row. So I'm coming through that second thread bridge, up through the second bead, down through the first bead, and up through the second bead again. And hopefully you have this by now. And then I'm just going to work my way across that row. And on the outside edge, it's going to be increasing brick stitch. So it's been a really fun year making videos for you guys. And in the next year, I hope to make more. I want to make another book. And my next book, I want to be sort of brick stitch like this, but different shapes, not just fringe brick stitch. I'm excited about the possibilities of all these different shapes. So I've worked my way to where we switch over again, like we did on the other side. Like that. And then I'm just going to work across there. And I've run out of thread. So I just want to show you guys how to deal with that. The important thing when you run out of thread, which you've seen in all my videos, hopefully, and if you're new here, you haven't, but the important thing is to leave yourself enough thread to weave back into your beadwork. Don't wait until you have no thread and you can't do it, and then you're not going to have any luck. So I'm just weaving it down, and then I like to just find 2 beads right next door to each other, and I go around them in a little loop-de-loop, which creates tension. And you don't need to make a knot. You just create the tension with this, sort of going back and forth in opposite directions. And I swear this thread is not going to come undone. It's actually, I find it more secure than back in the day. I used to make knots, and it's not as good as this. Oh, that was a little pun there. So now I'm also taking that first tail from where I started at the thread bridge, and I'm just going to weave that back in while I'm here. I don't know why I don't do that sooner in my beadwork, but it just gets in the way. So if you can, do it sooner. And then I'm going to add a new thread do the same thing. With the fire line, it's really important to run it through your nails. You could also do it with pliers. I find your nails are perfectly fine. And it gets it nice and flat, and then it's so easy to thread. So that's the way you have to do it. It's sort of a plastic thing. I'm not sure exactly what it's made out of, but it does flatten down with sort of pressure. So to start that new one, I pick a place down in my beadwork, and then I'm just going to anchor it by going back and forth around a couple of beads, sort of the same way I ended it, just like that. And then I'm just going to take that thread up to the top. Let's see if that's what actually happens here. Yeah, so I'm going to take it up to the top. Also, if you've been working with delicas for a while, these galvanized delicas that I'm using, the gold ones, are so smooth. I don't know if you guys have noticed that too, but they're just so much easier to put your needle through, and I just love working with them. I wish I was only working with them because there's just like a smoother feel. So now I have finished that second section, and I'm at the top, and I'm in section C on your pattern now. So the very top there, and I'm going to run this line across. And this you want to pay attention to because those two inside beads are actually increasing beads. But then the rest of it is decreasing. So section C, I'm picking up my first two beads. I am coming through the second thread bridge, up through the second bead. Try not to get tangled. Down through the first bead. And then up through the second bead again. And then I'm going to come straight across there, following my pattern. So my next bead, which is this gold one. And also I made this pattern sort of in neutral-ish colors because I wanted it to be sort of blank, and you do use these colors or use whatever colors you have, and sort of, it's a really easy design to follow, but add your own spin to it. So now on this last row, it's increasing, or this last bead. So I'm sharing that same thread bridge and I'm increasing. And then I want there to be an increase on the other side too. So in order to do that, I'm going to pick up my gold bead and I'm going to come back up through that last bead. And so this is technically not brick stitch yet. This is a sort of ladder. This is ladder stitch. So I'm just going to ladder stitch those two beads together. And then I'm going to take my needle and come under the thread bridge on the opposite side, and then back up through that second bead in the ladder stitch. This is my favorite part of this style of earring because things start to come together and you're like, ooh, now I've done this and I've made this cool shape. So there I am with that. Now at this point, you want to really sort of finagle it because you don't want it sitting right on top of that bead as if it were a regular brick stitch. You want it to be the increasing brick stitch. You want it to sort of sit in the middle. So I'm picking up my next bead, which is sharing the same thread bridge as that bead in the center because it was an increasing. And now at this point, you can see it coming together. So now that I've added that, you can see everyone is sitting where they're supposed to. And then I'm just going to finish that row as I normally would. And that's the trickiest part of this top part. And so now the rest of it is simple decreasing brick stitch as you would. And you just finish it off. At the very end, I'm going to add a little bead at the bottom, which sometimes people have trouble with. They're not sure how they're going to add that. So I'm going to show that to you because it's not always clear to people how to add that bottom bead. So we'll just skip through this and get to the instant triangle complete. Or diamond, I guess it's a diamond complete. I'm just thinking of this last section as a triangle. So a little bit more, and here we go. I have finished it, and now I just have that one little bead at the bottom. And because I just want to make the triangle sort of complete. And it's not a brick stitch, this last one. The last one is just sort of adding a bead in there like that. And then I'm just going to come back down through the second bead on the bottom, back through that bead on the bottom. And you see it's sort of lying a different way than the other beads. It is, not sort of, it definitely is lying a different way. So, and now I'm done. And I'm just going to bring my needle up, weave it into my beadwork in the same way we did before. Go around a couple of beads, make some tension, no need for knots here. I will say that this earring in the end, it's quite stiff, but I know we've had other videos where we've talked about this. If you feel you want to, you could add a stiffening agent to your beadwork. I have another video about that. Personally, I normally use Mod Podge to stiffen my beadwork, although I don't always stiffen my beadwork. But if you did want to, that is an option. And you could see it in some of my other videos. And I've clipped off my thread. And now I'm going to add my ear wire, which is already open. And loop that on there, close that up. And I have this finished earring. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here for the last year and a half or however long you've been here. Thank you for 20,000 subscribers. It's been amazing. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I hope you get the free video, and I hope you'll sign up for a mailing list when you get the free video, because I have a lot of cool things coming up. And you might want to know about these new patterns. I'm really excited about these new patterns. I've been sort of inspired by African prints, and that's where my new patterns are coming from, like the sort of jumping off point of my inspiration. So I hope you'll check out some of my new patterns. And I also have sample sale on my website and lots of exciting things. So please subscribe. Thank you for being here, and bye-bye.